Hi, PerspectiveWeather.com meteorologist Paul Dorian here on Wednesday, April 1st. Quite an interesting weather pattern setting in today with low pressure moving off the mid-Atlantic coastline, the Carolina coastline. It'll continue to move northeast for a while out over the open waters of the western Atlantic, but then it'll run into an atmospheric roadblock. We actually have a high latitude blocking situation right now that will force this ocean storm to loop back around towards the northeast U.S. Won't come all the way back to the coast, but it'll keep it quite unsettled right through the end of the work week, right through the day on Friday, as it retrogrades back towards the northeast U.S. coastline. Over the weekend, things will get a little calmer in the northeast and the mid-Atlantic region as high pressure pushes in. That will also allow for more sunshine and milder conditions. But again, for the next few days, we have this atmospheric blocking pattern that will force an ocean storm to kind of loop back around, keeping it somewhat unsettled over the next few days. Well, before we get into the current weather situation, just wanted to show this satellite image exactly 60 years ago today, April 1st, 1960. First satellite image from the Tyros, NASA's Tyros satellite 60 years ago. The very first satellite image, of course, that was a monumental step in the world of weather forecasting. It allowed us, probably more important than anything else, it allowed us to monitor much more closely, much more easily, tropical systems around the world. Of course, these are water-based phenomenon, tropical regions of the world, and satellite image added an immense capability for weather forecasts to monitor in the Atlantic Ocean and the Pacific Ocean and the Indian Ocean, these tropical cyclones. And of course, we've come a long way from this very first satellite image 60 years ago today, on April 1st, 1960. Well, let's take a look at this teleconnection index we've been monitoring over the last several days, called the North Atlantic oscillation. It gives us kind of an idea of what's going on in the North Atlantic with respect to temperature and precipitation patterns. And when it falls into negative territory for an extended period of time, even this late in the season, even into the springtime, it's really more or less something we watch over the wintertime, but certainly into the early part of the springtime, it remains an important clue as to what might be going on across Canada, Greenland, Iceland, and ultimately that has an impact on the central and eastern U.S. When it's negative, it's a more favorable pattern generally for what we call high latitude blocking, where there's upper level ridging over places like Greenland, Iceland, northeastern Canada. That in turn can do a couple of things. First of all, it can help to improve the possibility of cold air outbreaks from moving all the way into the central and eastern U.S. from central and northern Canada. And indeed, we have cold air outbreaks, it looks like, in the central and eastern U.S. coming our way right into the middle of the month of April. And this NAO is a good clue that that will continue to be the case right for the next couple of weeks or so. Another thing that a negative NAO for a sustained period of time can give a clue about is high latitude blocking. And if indeed there's strong upper level ridging over places like Greenland, it can force low pressures coming off the east coast of the U.S. to do some strange things. And in this case, we'll see in a moment, this particular storm moving off the Carolina coast right now will end up looping back around and come closer, retrograde closer to the northeast U.S. coast over the next couple of days. Won't make a direct hit, but it'll have some impact both on Thursday and Friday in parts of the northeast and mid-Atlantic region. Well, let's talk a little bit more about high latitude blocking using last night's 6Z operational run of the GFS. This is a forecast map of the 500 millibar height anomalies, and we'll go forward over the next week to 2 weeks or so. All these areas in orange or even purple represent way above normal heights. And generally that's associated, it's correlated with high pressure ridging. And this is again in the upper part of the atmosphere. This is kind of a classic negative NAO pattern. When you see, this is Greenland right in this region right here, and this is a kind of a pattern you may see in the upper part of the atmosphere. We're looking at 500 millibars with a sustained negative NAO, indeed high latitude blocking. Meanwhile, down in this part of the world, we have low pressure right now moving off the Carolina coastline, and we'll see what happens with this blocking pattern to the north. It'll force this system to go out and then loop back around in this kind of a fashion. Again, it will not make a direct hit on the northeast U.S., but because of its looping back around, it will have an impact. Keep it unsettled right through Friday. By the weekend, it finally may turn out and move out over the open waters of the Atlantic Ocean. Will settle down a bit over the weekend in the Mid-Atlantic region in the northeast U.S. So let's now push ahead here. This is for starting off with Wednesday morning. Let's just push ahead and watch what happens. Here we have that low pressure area moving up over the western part of the Atlantic Ocean. Keep an eye on this. Meanwhile, the blocking continues. If anything, it intensifies by tomorrow over northern Canada, moving into Greenland. And here we go. This is starting to make that loop around, and you see it kind of runs into this atmospheric roadblock, and now we're into Friday morning at this time, and it kind of forces that back around. It kind of loops around because of this blocking pattern. This is now the Friday afternoon forecast, and again, it'll cause some stronger winds along the coastline, especially in the northeast U.S., but even in the mid-Atlantic region, we'll see an increase in winds as a result of this retrograding low pressure system. That increase of winds tomorrow into tomorrow night, and then later tomorrow night into Friday, there'll actually be a band of clouds and showers dropping from the northeast to the southwest as this system drops to the southwest, and that could throw some clouds, maybe some showers into parts of the northeast and the mid-Atlantic region later Thursday night into Friday morning. Let's keep moving ahead and watch what happens here. We have this continuation of block over the northern part of Canada, as represented here by much above normal heights at 500 millibars. And it kind of sticks around. It kind of loses a little bit, but then it kind of reestablishes itself. We will have a warm break over the weekend into the early part of next week in the eastern U.S., but that is not the end of the cold air outbreaks here. We see a trough starting to form here in the eastern U.S. Now we're all the way out to the latter part of next week, but associated with this will be some colder air for this time of the year, colder than normal air for this time of the year. And again, that looks like it'll continue maybe right until at least the middle part of April. Here we are now April 13th time frame, and on a below normal heights going into the middle part of April. All of this could very well be associated with colder than normal air for this time of the year. And again, this is now 2 weeks out into the middle part of April. Still some higher heights than normal over Greenland, even in the middle of April. Well, now let's take a look at the 850 millibar temperature anomalies, just to kind of show some support for the idea that we'll have cold air outbreaks in the central and eastern U.S. going right into the middle part, at least the middle part of the month of April. We're starting off right now colder than normal conditions on Wednesday here, and let's move forward here and watch what happens. We do get a break in terms of these cold air outbreaks over the weekend. Things will settle down a little bit. Cold air trying to hang on across the northeast U.S., but then certainly by the latter part of the weekend and the first half of next week, it looks like above normal conditions will intensify over the eastern half of the nation. That, however, is not going to be the end of the cold air outbreaks. Let's keep moving forward here. We talked about perhaps some colder air arriving late next week. Here we are now Thursday of next week, and here we go by Friday of next week, another cold air outbreak into the central and eastern U.S. And we'll just keep moving forward here. It kind of relaxes a little bit, maybe get a little bit above normal, but look at that, another quite impressive colder than normal air mass. Here we are now out almost the middle part of April. This happens to be the forecast for April 13th, and sure enough, that makes it all the way into the eastern U.S., right in the middle part of the month of April. So certainly, not only does the NAO support the idea of continuation of cold air outbreaks into the central and eastern U.S. over the next week or two, but certainly the forecast models do as well. This from the 060 run of the operational version of the GFS. Well, let's take a closer look at the continental U.S. now, looking at surface forecast maps from the 6Z GFS model run. Here is that low pressure system now off the Carolina coastline. By the way, it was cold enough for some snow in the Shenandoah Valley region, for example, of southwestern Virginia last night as this low pressure system moved from west to east. Cold enough for snow, with some snow on the ground this morning in that particular part of Virginia. Now, this will looks like it'll maybe move out over the open waters of the Atlantic and we won't have to deal with it again. But because of that tremendous blocking to the north, watch what happens. It goes as far out as this particular location by tonight, and notice it also deepens all the way down to a 976 millibar central pressure. That's quite an ocean storm. And then it turns to the northeast, still intensifying, 973. So a decent pressure gradient will set up all the way into the mid-Atlantic region and northeast U.S. with some increasing winds noticeably on Thursday and Thursday night, even though this is staying offshore. But then it starts to loop back around here by Friday. This is as late as Friday. Look at this isobar pattern here. Tight pressure gradient with that storm. Very strong storm. Even though it's out over the waters, it keeps it very unsettled in the mid-Atlantic and northeast U.S. at a minimum, with an increase in winds on Thursday and Friday. But also, this particular band of clouds and shower will actually be rotating around this system from the northeast to the southwest, and it could throw a few showers back into the New England, the rest of the northeast U.S., and even into the mid-Atlantic region late Thursday night into early Friday. Here we go, and then finally that tends to loop back around and move out for good this time by the weekend into the middle part of the Atlantic Ocean. The frontal system will be approaching, but it tends to weaken, and we get a little bit more settled, a little bit milder over the upcoming weekend. And again, we saw a moment ago with the 850 millibar temperature anomalies will actually warm up quite a bit by the early part of next week. In the first half of next week looks warmer than normal, but then we keep moving forward here now in the middle part of next week. Colder air starting to build here over south central Canada, and indeed that strong cold front works its way all the way across the country here now. This is next Thursday. Strong cold front right in this region right here, and that will pass on by and usher in a cold air mass for the mid-Atlantic region. Cold for this time of the year at the end of next week. We're talking now Friday, April 10th or so. But again, continuation of some cold air outbreaks for the central and eastern U.S. for the next couple of weeks, certainly right into the middle part of April. The negative NAO is giving us a strong signal that that will happen, and this low pressure system moving off the Carolina coast today will end up looping back around and having an impact on the northeast U.S. and the mid-Atlantic region over the next few days. It loops back around after it runs into an atmospheric roadblock with all that very, very strong high-pressure ridging over places like Greenland, northeastern Canada, and Iceland. Well, that's it for now. For PerspectiveWeather.com, I'm meteorologist Paul Dorian.